honored to have been,
Sorry, there you go.
no problem. I'm honored to have been asked to host this. I met Patty probably 3 years ago. I believe that our state of politics in Pennsylvania and throughout the nation is that we are no longer the melting pot. We are the salad bar. We're all compartmentalized into our own little space. And I think we need to open our eyes and open our ears. And especially when it comes to conservation issues, we need to be bipartisan or nonpartisan. And that's my mission, is to try to get everybody heard, everybody exposed to the candidates, what they stand for, how they'll be our representative in this case. So that's kind of the lead in. The candidate is Patty Smith. Wave, Patty, so everybody knows who you are.
Hello.
And Patty's district would be Northern Dauphin County and out towards Northern Lebanon County. It's 104th district. Mm-hmm. And with that, I will let Patty do an introduction of herself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of you being on, taking your time to talk to me. It's really so difficult right now to talk to voters face to face. Usually I'd be out knocking doors and talking to people from every party. And it's really become complicated with COVID. We aren't knocking doors right now. I'm sure we're not going to be doing that all the way through election day. So these town halls, these kind of virtual house parties are really the best way. And I do miss talking to voters one-on-one. I especially like talking to people who have different views than I do. I know that's kind of odd in this day and age, but I really do love the exchange of ideas. I like to know why people think the way they do, why they, what matters to them and why it matters to them. Because I have a firm belief that deep down we're all the same. Oh boy. Hi.
Yeah, gobble, gobble, gobble. She sees the turkey.
Hi.
Hi, Claire.
And she's talking. Okay. Go ahead, Patty.
So yeah, I think that deep down inside, you know, we are all the same. We all want the same things. I think if you watch CNN, you know, you think everybody on the other side have, you know, completely lost their minds. And if you watch Fox News, I think you think all the Democrats have lost their minds. But I really honestly believe that all of us, or the majority of us, live in the middle somewhere. And we're really not being represented because everything is so polarized. We're at a time, you know, where you can't even discuss politics at the dinner table. You know, people are losing friends and family members over it. And we've really lost the art of hearing from other people who differ from us, from talking for them, for caring about people who are different from us. And I use a hashtag a lot that in my social media posts that says, make politics civil again, because I really think that that's what's missing. I think that's why our politics has become so stalled, why nothing gets done except a lot of bickering, is because all they care about is politics, about their party. And I have a firm belief that if we would bring everybody together, put everybody in the same room, and hammer out the things that are broken, that need resolved, we could really come to an agreement. The problem is that Democrats get together and they create their own agenda. Republicans get together, they create their own agenda, and it doesn't get approved because the other side had no part in it. And if we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna move forward, we all have to sit down together. We have to compromise. That has been lost today. And really it's hurting us in a big way. People are really hurting right now through COVID, through the unemployment. Businesses are closing. And if we don't come together now, it's only going to get worse. And so my goal is, once I'm elected, is to do that. And I know Harold knows, you know, I've worked together with him. I've discussed with him about having conversations on certain touchy subjects and bringing people from all the interested parties together in a room, you know, and just hammering out the details. And if we could do that, that's how you get things passed. So
we
that's
were this close too, and then COVID came.
I know. I had it all lined up.
Yes, you did.
We'll get there.
All right.
Yeah, we will definitely do it. But I think once, you know, when all sides has a stake in the bill and the legislation that's coming forward, then it'll get passed. And it's not that difficult to get a bunch of grown-ups, or it shouldn't be that difficult to get a bunch of grown-ups in a room and do what's best for the state. So.
All right. Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
Tim, you've had the worst time getting on the call, so I'll let you go first. Do you have any questions for Patty?
Well, I have a number of questions, actually. First is, where do you stand on what I view as the governor's inability to come together with Republicans on COVID? And I'm gonna let you answer these things one at a time rather than bombarding you with a number of questions and then having to sort them out.
Okay.
I truly believe that well, I don't even know where to start on COVID. I understand that it is a real thing, but the numbers don't play out. The numbers don't play out what has happened to our society and what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So the first part of your question really goes back to what I was just saying. I can't be any more disappointed in our legislators on both sides, state level, federal level, and even local level. I see it there as well, on an inability to sit down and work together. It seems to me, and I'm just going to make a generalization here. I certainly don't mean that they're all like this. But it seems to me that being right, that being in charge, and being in control is really what matters most. You know, they seem to be forgetting that we're all here suffering while they're up there posturing and puffing out their chests and, you know, trying to be the one that's in charge. I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed in the way it was handled in the beginning, because I think that's when we had the best chance of everybody working together. And for a while we did have everybody working together. But then everything kind of diverged and everybody went their separate ways. And you kind of see how that played out in terms of us getting caught in the middle. It is my firm belief that they should have sat down and compromised and found a way forward. I mean, you have to understand or take into consideration that COVID kind of did come out of nowhere. It came on really quickly and left a lot of people unsure about the disease. First of all, how it was contracted, how it was passed from one person to another. So I think there's some leeway that we can give our governor and the legislature when they were operating under the assumption that they didn't know it all. But after that, I'm really disappointed in the way things turned out. I'm disappointed in the fight. See, that's what we need on every Zoom party, animals in every picture.
Yeah, you're missing it, Tim. One of the
Patty.
guests on here walked away from her desk and her cat took over.
One of my friends, Jack London, who ran for the state senate, an adopted cat, Smithy and I, named Chloe, and that's his mascot. So yeah, no, I'm good with animals. The thing about COVID is, I'm really at a point where, the whole COVID thing, and it comes down to, political advertisements and stuff right now. It's being led by fear. It's being led by fear of something that is not creating the panic that we should be in. I mean, the numbers do not play out.
Yeah. So, I mean, COVID is a lot more dangerous than the flu, right? So I have a really good friend who is an epidemiologist. He got hammered in the beginning when he labeled it a pandemic, and everybody was like, you don't know what you're talking about. But then they came around. And so, he has kind of kept me up to date on the stats and how more fatal COVID is than the flu. I think part of the restrictions that were in place in the beginning did enable us to keep the number of people who got COVID down. I think we would have had a much higher rate if we wouldn't have done what we did, if we wouldn't have closed down. But I think there's definitely a way to move forward. Masks do work. I know that is not always a popular opinion, but I'm getting that information from people who aren't a Democrat or a Republican. They're just in the medical profession. And I think we could have opened a lot.
I'm going to give you this right up front, that I will not give any business a hard time about a mask policy. I mean, I'm going to be in their establishment for 10, 15 minutes. And it's not, I am not going to ostracize the business for requiring me to wear a mask. I really don't even know where to go with this at this point.
Yeah. And I think that really shows the complete failure of our leaders, of our legislators, because they have us pitted against each other, masks, no masks. Is it real? Is it not? Is it as dangerous as they say? Is it not? That is not where the public should be. And I think it's a failure on all levels across all parties, I'll be honest. I think the indication that masks do work is that
that's a statement that I agree 1,000% with. Is that both sides are playing against the middle.
Yep.
And somewhere there is truth. And the thing that we're having the biggest hardship disseminating is, where is the truth? That's
right. That's right. And
everything's been made political. When a mask can be used as a political weapon, the extremes win. Right?
Yeah. And I kind of liken it to what they're doing, both sides, is they're pitting us against each other. Mm-hmm. So that we're so busy fighting and arguing with each other and hating each other and really just thinking that the other person is the cause of all of our problems. While we're doing that, they're stealing the kingdom. They're getting away with everything because our attention is over here and they're over here up to no good. And when I say that, I mean both sides. And I legitimately mean that. I mean, I've been a government watchdog for a very long time. I know what it's like. I know both sides have problems. And I am not going to pretend that they don't. And I'm really, really angry about it. Because if you look at where we are as a state, as a society, I mean, we don't know our neighbors anymore. We tend to just stay to ourselves.
Our state right now comes up in the national news more often than not.
I didn't catch that.
And I said our state comes up in the national news more often than not.
Yeah.
We are still at the most restrictive.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. Yeah, I think Patty's right on that. I'll share this with everybody. As we're distracted by the COVID issue, and that can be used for a whole bunch of different excuses. I found out late yesterday that the Republican caucus is eyeing up several conservation funds, and they are using the COVID issue as the reason why they're going to have to raid those funds to try to balance and make up this revenue shortfall. And what's that?
It shouldn't be.
Yeah. These are funds that have been, on their list for quite some time, and they've been held at bay. But now with COVID affecting us so much, we could end up, now we're not going to get affected very easily on the fish Dingle Johnson money, that's federal money, and the Pittman Robertson money, which is, for the hunting side of things, for guns and ammunition. I don't think they're going to get their hands into that $170 million. But if over the next few weeks and months, you start hearing talk of merging the Game Commission and Fish Commission under DCNR, it better set off alarms for everybody, because we're about to get raided. And the way that they can do that is what Patty just said. They're distracting us. They're getting us fighting among ourselves. And in the end, there's a hidden agenda in there.
Yes.
So Patty, I appreciate what you're saying on that. And I agree with you 100%. What else you got, Tim?
So let's get down to this sportsman end of it. Let's get down to the hunters and fishermen. I mean, we've kind of figured out what's going on in the world in general, but I guess and full disclosure, I don't know if Harold told you, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm a Republican committee person from Chester County, and I'm an outdoorsman and things like this, and when it comes down to the Constitution, I focus right on shall not infringe. So we shall not infringe on the Second Amendment.
And in Pennsylvania, it says shall not be questioned.
Correct.
So what do you say, Patty, about Second Amendment?
Well, I am a gun owner. My husband and I own guns. I own my own. We are at the range a lot. We have an AR. My husband hunts, fishes. I was born, as Patty can attest, into a family of hunters. I'm married into a family of hunters. So, I've got your back in terms of that. I'm not looking to take away any guns. Obviously, I own them. I think we just need to do a better job of keeping them out of the hands of people who are going to hurt themselves and others. I think that has to be a big concern of ours. But I think really the foundation to solving our issues, I honestly believe, is mental health issues. I think.
So the question rolls into how do we do that? I mean, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
The laws are currently on the books to take care of most any pro-2A issue that there is. I mean, the laws are there. The laws are there. And my personal belief is that those laws are not being upheld. They're not being, the first, a gun infraction is probably the first thing that is negotiated out or plea bargained out.
At a crime. Yeah, you're right, Tim.
And that's our biggest problem. That is our biggest problem is what our district attorneys and how laws are being applied. We have the laws. We have the laws on the books to take care of a lot of these big questions. But we're not holding our district attorneys, we're not holding judges responsible for applying the law that exists.
Yeah.
I mean, we really don't need more law. We need existing laws to be enforced.
What do you say to that, Patty?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the gun issue, like just about every other issue, can't really stand on its own, right? Because it's so intertwined with other things like mental health, like the criminal justice system, like you just said. So it becomes really difficult to say, I'm going to fix this problem with these blinders on. And this is what Harold and I were talking about earlier. You know, my idea was to get all of the stakeholders involved in the gun issue together in a room to solve the problem. That included the NRA, that included Democrats, Republicans, police, mental health people, people who are in the criminal justice system, and people who deal with racial issues and hate crimes. Because you can't just say that if we fix A, it's gonna fix everything else. But you also can't say, I personally am gonna fix this. Democrats can't say, we alone are gonna fix the gun issue and here's our solution. Because what that does is it alienates every other single stakeholder in that discussion. And they're obviously, if they don't have a seat at the table, they are not going to be involved in passing legislation that doesn't represent their needs. I know there's a solution. I'm positive of it. There's a solution for absolutely everything if you care enough to solve it. And right now, nobody cares enough to solve it. Hell, they don't even care enough to solve half the issues we have going on in this state because they don't want to reach across the aisle, whether that's D to R or R to D, to work with the other side. That's the problem that we have. And I agree, we've got a criminal justice system that has so many problems, so many problems. I've done multiple town halls on the issue. And you're right. You know, you look at the bail situation. That's not even uniform across the courts. So I agree with you that we do need to start enforcing the laws that we have. We do have certain things I think that can be fixed. You know, I do strongly believe that the gun show loophole should be closed.
What is the gun show loophole? Explain that.
That's a good question. That's a question that really does need to be answered.
Because I can't explain it. If somebody says to me, what's the gun show loophole?
Yep.
I can't explain it because when I go to a gun show and I try to buy a gun, they're running a background check on me.
Yep.
Yeah,
so I can explain it because it happened to me. So what the loophole is if you're a dealer, you have to run a background check. If you're a regular person selling something, no background checks are needed. So my husband and I were at one of the gun shows at the farm show, either last year or 2018, I can't remember which, but we stopped at a table that had a bunch of ARs on it. And my husband was looking at them and the guy behind the table came out made a beeline for my husband and said, hey, no background checks. He said, I'm not a dealer, so it's perfectly legal here in PA. That was said to us. So that's the loophole. You know, I think we need to run background checks on people, because keeping the guns out of the hands of people who aren't supposed to have it, in my mind, is a key to fixing the problem. It doesn't solve the problem of criminals, you know, stealing weapons or making the ghost guns and, you know, things like that. It doesn't. Not every law fixes every problem. But I think that's one that we can actually close, because if I know it exists, you can bet that somebody who isn't going to pass a background check knows it exists.
I think that the problem with that name being on that, the gun show loophole, it really isn't a gun show loophole. It's a loophole in private transactions. And I have, not surprising, I have a lot of friends that have gun shops, and I've talked to them about this, and they absolutely believe that should be a background check for every gun sold and transferred in Pennsylvania. He told me flat out, he said, I've sat here and sold a gun, watched the guy leave, drive across the road to the parking lot over there, and somebody else comes, I see him selling it to that guy, and there's no background check. Till he calls the police, they're gone. Now they can, you know, he can give the police their name, but they did nothing wrong.
That's right.
So I'm glad you explained that.
That's a long gun. That's a long gun.
Long gun only, yes. But ARs, right. I mean, you know, ARs bring so much heat to gun owners that I personally, when I've talked to my friends about this, and they say, hey, we actually make a couple bucks on every background check. I think that, Patty, just a suggestion for thought for the future, you know, if we have to get a driver's license, and we don't get a driver's license checked every time that, or updated every time we buy a car, and that's kind of how I feel about background checks. I don't know how sportsmen and gun owners would feel about having the ability to have a background check done, be issued a card for that, and now I don't need to have any more background checks done unless I violate the law and they take my card away. What do you think of that idea, Tim?
So the problem with that is
good idea.
It comes back to government intrusion and a registry of who's done.
I didn't catch all of that.
Well, it comes back to a registry, and you know there's not supposed to be a registry of who owns guns. I'm not really sure where I want to go with this, because
it's a sticky situation, that's for sure.
It is, and you know, look, I'm just going to be perfectly honest and blunt, because that's who I am as a person. Okay, so I'm always I'm always open for discussion. I don't believe that I have the right answers all the time. I am perfectly open to the fact that one more piece of information could sway my decision one way or the other, could be that key. But I think a large part of the problem with the gun debate is propaganda on both sides. You know, I have sat in a room with the NRA where they started out with, Democrats are going to take your guns. And I'm sitting in that room, and it took everything I had to put my hand up and say, yeah, that's not true. Okay, but then you have the other side. I can't tell you how many people come up to me because of my gun stance on my website and say, you know, we got to ban ARs. We've got it. They're automatic weapons. And it's like, no, they're not. You know, I can only shoot my husband's AR as fast as I can shoot my pistol, my handgun. You know, it's as fast as you can pull the trigger. So that's another piece of the problem. And it goes back to
the whole AR thing is that it's just an ugly gun in some people's mind.
I think in Pennsylvania, Tim, the issue with ARs is we're not allowed to use them for hunting. If we could get them legal for hunting, I think that takes a little bit of that stigma away from them. There's a question I wanted to ask Patty.
It's not even about an AR. I mean, you have a Browning BAR.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
any semi-automatic rifle.
They're nice, sleek looking guns. They got wood stocks and this, that, and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not so-called a dark weapon. And the misrepresentation, and here's the big thing. You know, everybody wants to, it's an AR. It's an AR-16. It's not an AR-16. It is not a military weapon. It is not a weapon of war. It is not a fully automatic weapon.
It's actually the most popular firearm for sportsmen in the United States. But Patty, let me ask you this. These mass shootings that we've had, it seems to me like a common thread. It gets back to your comment earlier about mental health.
Yeah.
The common thread to me is somebody always comes forward after one of these incidents and says, in many cases, the police were called, the police were involved, the schools, you know, guidance counselor or whoever was involved.
Mm-hmm.
What's your view on that? And do you have a suggestion?
How do you change that?
Yeah. Do you have a suggestion on, you know, the guns take the beating for that, but yet there's evidence out there that people knew that person was unstable.
Yeah.
And maybe they went into a grandfather's safe and took the gun out. And our response to that is, we want to take guns. When I believe our response to that should be, the police need to be more proactive when they get these tips.
Yeah. And that goes back to what I was saying about keeping them out of the hands of people who shouldn't have one, you know, who are going to do harm to themselves or others. You know, when I say that to some people, they're like, oh, isn't that just a lovely Democratic talking point? No, it's really not. It's actually a goal that we should be striving towards.
How would you do that? How would you do that? Would you start by locking up the person who needs to be investigated and examined to see what their mental health state is? Or is your solution more along the lines of making guns harder to get, harder to secure, harder to store at home?
Yeah. No, so I'll give you a couple examples. So when you look at the Parkland shooting in Florida, he did a horrific thing. Horrific. But that school knew he had no family. That school knew he had anger issues, that he had mental health issues. And what they did was they expelled him, they kicked him out the door and said, good luck to you, right? To me, our school system, we have to do better at protecting these kids from themselves, from their situations. You can't kick somebody out of school like that and expect that it's going to work out well. You just can't. We have a responsibility to intervene and to make sure that they get the help they need. It doesn't have to be in school, right? The school could work hand in hand with the system, the mental health system, and get them the help they need. Because you're right, whenever they talk about people, mostly, there are times we don't know what caused it. You do have issues like that. And our police force is not equipped to handle mental health issues. That's been proven time and time again. It is not fair to the people who need the help, and it's not fair of the officers that we send there unequipped to handle those situations. We need to have more funding in the mental health issue. We need to have counselors in school who have a communication with the system, with doctors. We need to, instead of calling the police when there's mental health issues, 911 should be able to dispatch a mental health professional, whether that's alone or with the police. But we aren't handling these situations well. And then we have all these questions about why it doesn't work out well. And that's what I think we need to start doing.
Getting back to the Second Amendment, getting back to laws that are on the books, and it comes back to the same situation. It's keeping DAs from plea bargaining out gun law violations and things like that. I mean, most criminals, most of the people that are shooting somebody on the streets in Chicago have already been up against a gun infraction that has been negotiated out. And that's a problem. It's not the guy, it's not me, it's not Harold, it's not you, it's not anybody that is a legal gun owner that is committing these crimes.
So Patty, would you support
the crimes that are being committed right now in this nation, in my view, are district attorneys that will absolutely plea bargain out a gun plea, and every federal offense that is implied.
So Patty, would you support pursuing legislation that would not permit gun law violations to be plea bargained out, but they must be pursued to the full extent?
Well, I don't feel like I'm equipped to answer that question well, because I haven't done any research on it, I'll be honest. I don't know how often it happens or why it happens, but it's definitely something I'd be interested in looking at, because I think our criminal justice system is just so flawed on so many levels. And that's just one of them, but I also want to say, and when I talk to people who are against guns and gun ownership and things like that, it's not, if somebody is going to do harm to somebody, they're going to find a way, whether it's a gun or something else. When I was younger, I had a cousin who was murdered by her boyfriend. She had a PFA. He used a baseball bat. You have people running into crowds and mowing them down with cars. Like, we've got a big issue here, not just in our country, but across the world. That we need to.
We have a very big societal issue, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And, I guess, being involved with this conversation and talking about gun owners, hunters, and what have you, what I really want to get across to you and to anybody else is that gun owners are not the issue, but criminals are. Criminals are the issue. And that is what we have to take care of. This is where we need to make a stand. And we cannot be soft on this. We can't just say, oh, well, he had a bad childhood or whatever. We need to take a stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it goes to, open communication, conversations between people who don't see things the same way is the only way to fight the propaganda and to get to the heart of an issue. Because if we only listen to the people who are talking like us, nothing's ever going to move forward. We're just going to spin in circles and
in our corners. That's right.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm on this conversation. This is why I committed myself to being on this conversation.
And I appreciate that, Tim.
Me too.
All right. Let's see if Dwayne, do you have any questions for Patty? You're on mute, Dwayne. There you go.
No, I got on. Let me get the camera on here. I was doing stuff in my basement here. No, I represent, some clubs that will be voting on this election, and I just wanted to get a feel for what she stands for. And what I find, and I've discussed this with you, Mr. Daub, is we need to change our thinking on all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And she's in Lebanon County, and I'm just going to be, up front, women, how do I say this? Women are not looked at as equal as men, right? And I'm not putting you down.
No.
It's a reality.
We're trying to get women in our club, and you would think that we're going to burn down an orphanage at Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Hey, we're trying to start a program called the Way Program, Women and Youth. Oh, my word. Mm-hmm. You would not we had our last meeting, and that was brought up for background checks. It was, I've never seen a meeting like that. So as I go around to these clubs, they'll ask me, who are you supporting? I just need to give them information. And you're a woman and a Democrat.
I know.
Which does not make you evil. But, I just want to know your side on things. And and that's why I'm in on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Right. So, I appreciate that you're here.
Yeah, me too. And, I don't take offense to it. I'm well aware. I was verbally attacked today for being a woman. So,
Dare you.
That was my only.
That should never be a reason for you to be attacked.
Well, that's what I told him, but he wasn't having it. So, but it's the world we live in, and that's why for me it's so.
I got to ask you: does that mean these people think that your opponent is not a woman?
Well.
Oh, Harold.
Yeah, how about it?
Leave it at that.
He's an old hat.
An old one.
All right, Kevin, you're on the line. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Patty?
Yeah, I guess my question would be this: having dealt with and understanding the mentality of the politicians in Harrisburg, and understanding that they do not want to work with you until you absolutely make them, how would you go about facilitating that up front before it has to get ugly and we have to make them as sportsmen sit at the table with us?
So I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me try to clear that up for you, Patty. Sunday hunting for 20 years was just kicked down the road, never went anywhere.
Yeah.
I believe that we were successful in an 18-month period in getting Sunday hunting, at least the dam broke on Sunday hunting, because a person with Kevin's skills as a communications guy forced our legislators to have their necks on the chopping block if they continued to ignore conservationists. Mm-hmm. What I find in conservationists and hunters and our relationships with these legislators, we're taken for granted. The Republicans take us for granted that we're going to vote for them, and the Democrats take us for granted that we won't vote for them. Mm-hmm. And we're stuck in the middle. The Republicans don't care. They don't have to support us. They don't have to do things that we want done because we're going to vote for them anyway.
Yep.
Democrats, I get a sense that they feel like, well, I don't need to work with the conservationists because they're not going to vote for me anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, Kevin, did I paraphrase that all right? Is that about what you're asking?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not going to change when you're elected. It's going to be the same fight. It will always be the same uphill battle. It will always be the same battle lines. It will always be the struggle, and it will always be the bludgeoning. And we as conservationists will always be threatened from representatives such as Keith Gillespie, as we were in Sunday hunting. So to be able to navigate that, I just want to hear what your thoughts are as a fledgling legislator and how you would facilitate that so the battle lines can be less active, for lack of a better term.
Well, I think one of my gifts, I don't think I know, is the ability to communicate with people who may see me as an adversary, just for whatever reason, Democrat, or I'm this, I'm that, labels, the labels we put on ourselves and others. And like I had said in the beginning, I really honestly believe there's a tie that binds us all when you get right down to the bottom. And I think if you can have a conversation with someone to where you can put yourself on common ground, you can build off of that. And I'm really good at bringing people together from different backgrounds, different beliefs, and having them sit down and have a conversation and really work out a problem. I think that is one of my greatest gifts, and that's where I would start, and that's where I'm gonna start in the legislature. I come from a watchdog background, so I've made Democrats and Republicans angry, but that's too bad. That's a story for another day. But I also know how to handle that conflict, and when we go after an issue on the watchdog level, we start with trying to bring people to an understanding that, hey, what you're doing is not right. You can't do this, do that. And then sometimes it ends there. But depending on who you're dealing with, it's going to escalate. And, I am not opposed. I've done it for years, from standing up and calling out their name and saying, this
it's
is
8 o'clock.
Sorry, that's my computer. it's constantly telling me the time. I'm not afraid to stand up and point a finger and say, you want to know why this is not going through? You want to understand where the holdup is, where the bottleneck is? I can tell you, it's this person and this person and this person. I'm not afraid to point those people out, whether they're Democrat or Republican. I'm just not, because I am so fed up with the crap that is going on. I am so fed up with them standing in public and breaking the laws that they're writing and no consequences. And you know why that is? It boils down to gerrymandering. If I can just kind of go off on a tangent here. Gerrymandering is them drawing maps that are not fair, that are maps that are stacked to their deck, so that they can say that a person of this party is most likely 99% gonna win this district because we have stacked it with that many voters in their party. So what that gives you, okay, Pennsylvania is just littered with districts like that. I'll show you mine, because mine is particularly egregious. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a goldfish, right? There's no way a district should look like that.
That's
what
crazy.
that gives you is a legislator who is lazy, a legislator who doesn't have to try, who doesn't have to talk to their constituents, doesn't have to do what they want, because they know because of this, they're going to win their next election regardless. And that's what's going on. That's what's going on in my district. It's what's going on across the state. And that's why you're having so much trouble getting common sense legislation passed. Because when you look at who's donating to their campaigns, what lobbyists are taking them out to dinner, I'm telling you, it is perfectly legal to buy your own politician here in Pennsylvania. You've got an unlimited gifts. There's no gift ban. You can donate an unlimited amount of money to somebody's campaign. So if you wanted to donate $1 million to my campaign and give me a mansion on the beach, it's perfectly legal. Now, who do I owe my allegiance to? That's a problem.
So I was just at a function last evening, and I was actually in Bucks County, but I live in Chester County. But my congressman, and maybe this is different between state and federal, but I know that any donations over $100, you had to register.
You had to what?
Register.
You had to register.
Was that because it was for a federal congressman?
That could be.
Yeah.
There's different laws. Now, if you give me $1 million, it's going to show up on my financial report, but who cares?
I wish I had $1 million. I might just do that.
Well,
Right.
you could all chip in together.
Kevin, are you satisfied with that answer, or you want to go deeper?
No, I'm good. We're going on an hour. Let some other
Okay.
guys.
Mercedes, do you have any questions for Patty?
So I'm part of Patty's team, but I wanted to join this call in particular because I moved from California where guns are really a thing. And I knew that it was going to come up here. So I wanted to learn more about it and kind of where people in Pennsylvania are at, what their feelings are and what kind of legislation they're looking for to get that common sense law passed. So thank you for your time and for hosting.
Well, thanks for joining. I didn't introduce Jeffrey, and he's in the middle of my screen. I don't know if he's in the middle of anybody else's. Jeffrey, is there anything you'd like to bring up?
No, I'm in the same thing as Mercedes.
Yep.
I grew up in South Jersey. Laws are sort of similar.
Yeah.
I own guns myself, and I'm a Democrat. I'm actually eating.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm actually right now. I'm eating a venison burger.
Did you get your hunting license yet?
Yes, I did.
All right, that a boy.
And I'm actually in the middle of getting my conceal and carry.
All right.
So I am.
You're
I
on your way to a Republican card, man.
I have friends that say I'm a closeted Republican, but most of my social issues are very Democratic.
All right.
But yeah, I know not every Democrat is scary. We're Patty and I have a lot of similar views, and when it comes to guns, and I'm gonna go hunting this year. I'm gonna I love the outdoors. I mountain bike. I used to race dirt bikes growing up, for God's sake. So I'm not your typical Democrat.
All right. Well, welcome, and I'm glad you joined.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Patty, Bill. Sorry, Patty. Do you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think that there is a typical Democrat. I don't think there's a typical Republican. I think that's the stereotype that each side is promoting against the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all individuals with beliefs and hobbies and likes and dislikes. And I guarantee you, if you sat down with a Democrat, or if a Democrat sat down with a Republican, you would find that you have a lot in common. I'm 100% positive of that. And that's where we need to start moving forward.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Patty Leeser, Bill Leeser, I just want to say that it's because of Patty Leeser that I know Patty Smith. And there's things happen in your life, and for some reason it sticks with you. And I remember being under the pavilion at Erdman Sportsman's Club, and Patty Leeser saying to me, "You gotta meet Patty Smith. She's a Democrat, but I think you'd like her." You remember telling me that, Patty?
Yes, I do.
Yep, I can still see that. So thank you for that introduction. And is there any question you or Bill would like to ask?
You have a question?
No. How's Brad doing?
He's doing good.
All right.
He's going hunting tomorrow or Saturday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we are back to Mr. Hellings. Tim, what else is on your list there?
I'm glad to be on this call.
Okay.
I made commitment to be on this call, and you know, I think Patty said that, you know, where we need her to be. It's how do I want to put this? It's all about it really is all about, you know, law and order. It's about the Second Amendment. It's about how do we get together. And
I love Patty has a slogan that you'll like, Tim. People over party.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well,
and I mean it.
You know, and I do like that. I do like that. I hope she commits to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's really the bottom line. Is I hope she commits to that.
Yep.
It's, you know.
Well, that's a great segue. That's a great segue for a very serious question. And obviously there's no way to prove that the answer she's about to give, or maybe she'll choose not to. But Patty, how would you handle pressure from the Democratic caucus to force you to vote on something that you know that your constituency here in our district would not support? What would you do?
You'd bar her teeth.
So here's the honest answer, right? And this comes from my personality and just from the years of being a watchdog. I was a whistleblower, got fired for speaking up and turning them in. And I've been harassed. I've been stalked. I had to threaten someone that through my watchdog I had dirt on. I had to threaten them with a PFA because they were stalking me.
Wow.
This was a government official.
Wow.
I have had pretty much everything done to me that you can think of to shut me up and get me to act right. When I ran in 2018, I had some corner me in Giant, believe it or not, on Linglestown Road, tell me if I didn't drop what I had on them, they would ensure I didn't get elected. That was in 2018. And I told them to piss off. Because the more you threaten me and intimidate me and try to get me off the right path, the more I dig in and become determined. So my answer to your question is just look at my background, and that's how you know what I'm about to say is true. I would not and will not be bullied into doing something that isn't right. Somebody made a comment on one of your posts, Harold, that politics is a party sport. You know, it's a two-team sport, right? And he knew that government was broken. He said it right out loud. He said, but you can't go in there and change it. It is what it is. You play by the rules of your party or you get out. And my answer to that is why the system stays broken. Because politicians know it's wrong. They openly admit it's broken, but they are so afraid to speak out because they're afraid of losing their seat. They're afraid of losing favor with the party. And I'm sorry, but the party isn't who you should be kissing the ring to. You should be kissing the ring of the voters who put you there. And I have a firm belief that if I do the right thing and I stand up and I'm counted and I have no problems going before a microphone and saying, this is what they're threatening me with, right? Because I had somebody say, an elected official say, well, you won't get any bills passed. You won't get any this and that. There's lots of things, lots of ways they can punish you. And my response to that is, well, I can play that game. You're going to march into my office and you're going to say you're going to do the wrong thing or else I'm going to do this. Well, then I just go to my constituents and I say, guess what conversation I had today? if I don't do this, they're going to do that. And guess what happens when they do that? Right? You start doing that enough, and people are going to realize there's easier targets. I have found that to be true. I don't back down from a fight. It's just not in my nature. And that's my plan. My plan is to work with everybody across the aisle. But if somebody tries to twist my arm and make threats and try to strong arm me into doing the wrong thing, well then it's game on. I'm gonna drop the gloves, and that's gonna be where we are, because I'm not there to make friends with them. You need to make friends in order to work together. I understand that. I'm not gonna go in guns blazing, but if I'm backed into a corner where it's them or my voters are gonna win, and I'm gonna out them, and that's just all there is to it.
One of the things that I always think about when we get into those debates that you've seen on my Facebook page the last few days, you know, the President of the United States is a leader. He can create policy. He makes appointments to the Supreme Court, which leads this nation in a direction. No disrespect intended to any other elected official, and specifically none to you in the position you're running for, Patty, but a representative doesn't make appointments like that.
Right.
I view a representative position not as, it's a balance between being a leader, but leading based on the opinions of the constituency of your district.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm most disappointed in with our current situation in our district is I'm never contacted by my representative through the use of polling, which is so easy nowadays with social media and all of that. And I know, not to keep harping back on the Sunday hunting issue, but I know through that Sunday hunting fight, there were a lot of political leaders out there polling their constituents.
Yeah.
And I had no problem with those that had a transparent poll, those legislators that did that transparently and said, listen, I gotta vote for, or I gotta vote against this based on the fact that I had 6,000 people respond to my poll, and this was the percentage of the vote. Do we have your commitment as our representative, and also statewide as representing Pennsylvania, to put, you know, maybe Patty Smith has personal feelings about certain things. Do we have your commitment that you will represent us and not necessarily you as a person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I'm trying to convey, you know, is that I am open to talking to people about anything. I am open to hearing a different point of view, to kind of open my eyes. You know, it's like when somebody says, I believe this way, and it's completely opposite from me, my first reaction isn't to beat them over the head and say, no, my way. My reaction is, well, why? Why do you think that way? What's causing you to feel that way? And I absolutely want to do what's best for my constituents. And that brings me to a good point. I'm glad you brought it up, because when you are representing a district that involves Democrats and Republicans and, you know, the whole gamut of everything, there's so many issues, right? And there's always people on both sides. You have to do what's right for the majority of your district, for the people who are involved in that, who are affected by the decisions you're going to make. You may not please everybody, and I can honestly say you probably aren't going to please everybody, because there are people on both sides. But I think a good legislator sits down with both sides and tries to understand the totality of their position, and then goes and conveys that message to the district. Because what we're lacking is communication. You know, on my website, once I'm elected, I want to have all of the issues spread out. I want to have all the bills. I want to say in regular people's terms, not legalese. This is what this bill is. This is the consequences of a yes vote, consequences of a no vote. This is how I voted. This is why I voted that way. I want to have a period where people can get in touch with me to tell me how they feel, how they think I should vote, and why. You can't be a good legislator if you're not doing that.
Right. I can tell you that through my time working with legislators in the conservation world, there are good Democratic candidates. There are good Democratic legislators that aren't voting a party line.
Yeah.
And that's gonna, after you win this election, you're gonna be in that position because you're going to be in a Republican-dominated district on the Democratic side. And I'm glad you brought up about people saying you're just gonna vote as a Democrat.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
And I appreciate knowing that you're committed to backing up and representing our constituency here in our district. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any experience or any message you want to get out, Patty, relative to one of the key conservation issues that's coming down on Pennsylvania, of course, is the CWD issue. We have these invasive species like the spotted lanternfly that's probably going to show up here next year in northern Dauphin County. It's knocking on our door right now.
Yeah.
It's over the county line coming out of Schuylkill County. Is there anything else relative to anything at all that you'd like to put across the people on this call here tonight? And also, I assume you're going to share this recording. I hope you do.
Yeah.
So I think unless somebody has another question, I'd just like to give Patty the last few seconds or minutes here. And Patty, give us what your message is going out of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you again for everybody being on. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you having an open mind to hear from a Democrat. You know, like I said, like Harold said, people over party. I have voted for Republicans in the past. I have never been a toe the line kind of person. You know, I go with what's right. It's generally not an easy path to walk, but I do it anyway, because that's how I sleep at night. You know, I don't want to do any Sue bashing, but, you know, I will point out that, you know, when we ran in 2018, she had a town hall scheduled that she canceled because Democrats were coming. You know, she doesn't think that she represents everybody in this district. She voted so poorly on environmental issues last year that her environmental scorecard, she scored a 0 out of a possible 100. That's a 0. Do you know how hard that is to get a 0? She's literally voting to kill the planet that we live on. And
I want to bring up, you know, let me bring this up. You know, between Republicans and Democrats, and this is a very large issue. Is that, you know, when it comes down to it, the two parties don't get together on the conjunction between Pro-2A and environmentalism.
That's right.
I mean, most of us as hunters, we are both Pro-2A and environmentalism.
right.
And that's what people don't get.
Yeah. I mean, when I started as a manager of the local sewer authority, we had an engineer, of course, and, you know, one of the first questions I asked him was, where can I take my dogs to swim in water locally that is safe? And his response was, and I'll never forget it, define safe. And I said, okay, so, you know, I want them to be able to drink the water that they're playing in. And he said, don't do it. Wow. No place here in central Pennsylvania would he recommend my dogs drink out of. And, wow, you know, that shows you how how far in the weeds we are with our environment. And if you don't care about it for you, care about it for the next generation and the one coming after them, because we are destroying it at a rapid pace. And, you know, it's because of the special interests that that's happening, because destroying the environment is only good for the bottom line. It is not good for the people who live here. And so when your representative is voting against the environment 100% of the time, that should be a huge red flag on who she's really representing. And when she's totally ignoring over half of her constituents because their views don't align with hers, that's a problem. Because at some point, your views aren't going to align with hers and she isn't going to care. And you can't have that. That's what you get with gerrymandered districts. And that's why it is so frustrating. That's why I ran in 2018. That's why I'm running again here. I had a great state job. It was wonderful. It was one of the ones you retire from. And I had to quit that job to run in 2020 for this seat. I have no backup plan. I am totally committed to running this race and to winning this race because our district and this state deserve more than what we're getting. We need somebody who really wants to represent everybody and not be so out of touch that they can't for 1 second pick up the phone and take a call, that they can't take a meeting. I mean, she will literally tell you what you want to hear, and Harold can attest to this. You know, I've been working with the Humane Society trying to get Victoria's Law passed, which is an anti-puppy mill bill. Like, who's against puppy mills, for God's sakes? You know, I mean, who doesn't want to help dogs out of that horrible situation? And she signed on to the bill.
I'm a dog owner. Oh God, I've rescued dogs.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
1,000%.
But she signed on to Victoria's Law, told everybody she was for it, and then dropped off without saying a word.
Wow.
You know, that's what she does. And I think that's what she did to you with Sunday hunting.
Oh, no, she was never, on Sunday hunting, she told me that she could not vote for Sunday hunting unless and until the Farm Bureau changed their opposition to it. Mm-hmm. And then we worked hard and got the Farm Bureau to neutral. And then she voted against Sunday hunting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if she had polled our district in a transparent poll and shared the data in a way that it could be verified, and people in our district did not support Sunday hunting, I would not have had a problem with that. There were several legislators across the state that are doing the right thing. They put their personal feelings aside, mm-hmm. listen to their people, and represent. That's why they're called representatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened. That was my personal experience with Representative Helm. I have no doubt she's a nice lady, but she's not representing her people.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I heard a lot when I was knocking doors in 2018 is, oh, she shows up to all of our chicken barbecues and she comes to all of our events and all of our this and that. Well, you know, I will do that too. I have been doing that. I volunteer for the Middle Paxton Lions Clubs, for heaven's sakes, even in years that I'm not running. Okay, like
if you are a representative and somebody is throwing you an event, you're gonna show up.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but she shows up. I've seen it with my own eyes. You know, she shows up, takes a photo, hands everybody a pen, and leaves. I mean, she's literally buying votes with a chicken dinner and an ink pen. And
In there, saw that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's frustrating.
I see this on a regular basis.
Yeah. you know, I guess I would leave you with this, is if you know your current representative isn't working for you, take a chance on me. You know, I can only promise you what I know to be true, but you don't know it to be true. You know, to you, I'm just another politician making promises to get into office. But if I don't hold true to what I'm saying, vote me out in 2 years. There'll be a Republican on the ballot.
It's a 2-year lease right now.
That's right.
All we're asking.
But
That's all we're going to get you for.
Yeah, I guarantee.
And then you earn the next one.
That's right. So I guarantee you that I am going to do what I say, because running for office is not easy. Quitting your job to run for office is not easy. Getting attacked every day because you're a woman running for office or because you're a Democrat, that's not easy. That eats at you. And
Patty, to be honest with you, you know, when Harold put this all together, you know, going back to his post and things like that, you know, I agreed to be here, and part of the reason I agreed to be here is because you're brave enough to agree to this and take any abuse that you might get. So.
Yeah.
And it could have been a lot of abuse. This was an open call. You know, anybody could have got on here. And I'm disappointed that some of the folks that commented on my post haven't been able to join us here tonight. So Patty, I hope that you do share this, and I'm going to tag some people in it. So I hope they watch it.
Yeah, I will.
You know, it's a shame. It's actually a shame that people that, for whatever reason, didn't come, should have been here. And
they're on their salad bar. They're in their little bowl. They're the peas. This guy's the onions. You can't mix the two. We got to get out of that. So Patty, thank you very much for holding this. And
thank
I'm
you.
honored to have been asked to be your host. And it's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it. And I'll tell you, if anybody wants to organize a debate between myself and Sue, I am all for that. So I don't know if anybody wants to plug that bug in her ear.
Come on, Harold.
So, you know, maybe put a little note on her Facebook page that, hey, why don't you debate Patty, you know, because that's really where you're going to see the differences in us. And I think that's where you'll be able to judge really who has the right heart for this. And
I assume you would be willing to do that either in person or on a Zoom call like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. And I think, like I said, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
I have a question.
Thank you, everybody.
I appreciate the fact that you had the gumption to be here and possibly take abuse that you shouldn't have to, but some of us are here, some of us want what's right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, everybody.
Wait, I have a question.
Oh, okay, Patty.
Hey, Punk, what's with the turtles on the shelf behind you?
They're dog toys.
No,
I knew that.
You should have got on that computer, buddy. But all right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
See ya. Love ya.
Yeah, love you.
Bye.
You too. See ya.